Hello, this is Brant Hunt. Wednesday evening, that is. Um, the 21st day, I'm sorry, yeah, the 22nd day of November 2023. I'm going to do part two here of Symbol and Symbolic by Rene Schwaller de Luicz. Book part two, that is. Um, and so I hope that it's very scientific, very deep for me because my thinking is more logical on this perspective. And there's nothing wrong with the book. I'm just saying simply I don't understand a lot of the stuff sometimes, and it's good for me to learn as I read. So we're going to go continuously into this book, and this section is called symbolic modes. And let me turn on the recorder here. So when an image, a collection of letters, a word or a phrase, a gesture, a single sound, a musical harmony, or a melody have a significance through evocation, we are dealing with a symbol. This presupposes that the meaning of the determined aspect of the symbol must be known so as to be able to evolve a non-determinate aspect in the consciousness of the observer. This is a common nature of the symbol. Somehow it is rallying effect. It's like the effect that a few notes of a national anthem may be held on patriots under an invader yoke. On the other hand, no one would understand the meaning of UN, capital U and capital N, capital Y, capital M, C, A, or USSR, etc., if the meaning of each juxtaposition of initials had not been explained. Once acknowledged, it evokes the groups it represents, fulfills a rallying cry or role, and an image used as a trademark means nothing symbolically without a previous explanation. Okay, this is what people you need to understand sometimes. So let's continue on. On the contrary, a melody evokes moments experience, producing gaiety or sadness, just as a a symphony can transport the audience into a spring or autumn landscape. Here is a matter of a emotional evocation, and the music is a symbol. In literature, a metaphor is a symbol evoking a meaning by analogy, I should say. Allegory is a symbol causing a play of the imagination which will replace the description given. These are examples of exoteric symbolism. All the data, symbol, and evocation are adjective or adjectivifiable. The esoteric symbolic is different. It is of a magical nature. The word magic is understood here with the same sense as magus, M-A-G-U-S, and not magician. The three wise men, meaning magi's, of the Gospel and Hermes Trismegistus. For example, the grinding produced by rubbing metal against a tin can sets one's teeth on edge. In the same way, a disharmony will make the listener start and cause him to feel uncomfortable. A caricature makes people laugh. The Medusa image turn, that is the beholder, into stone. A roar in the silence of the forest will make the bravest person tremble. Two phosphorus eyes in the woods at night will create fear. Such things may be analyzed as the shock of the unexpected, the effects of the imagination. But the grating that sets one's teeth on edge is the effect neither of surprise nor of imagination. It is a constant effect. Similarly, the noise made by a trickle of water stimulates the notice, sorry, simulates the need to urinate even when one is asleep. The repetition of the same monotonous sound puts the mental consciousness deep to sleep. Manifold examples of the magic of analogs, producing reactions at a distance or esoteric symbolic effects. Untidily surroundings renders the occupant dirty and sloven. The environment is always a magical symbol. The Highlander differs in character and manners from the lowlander. When the sailor, unaccustomed to scanning the sky, occasionally cultivates his land, he does so absolutely differently from the peasant who keeps his eye to the ground. Country makes the man, you see. The sky makes the earth. Sky and earth are the great symbols and dominate humanity. The esoteric symbol is a natural and artificial fact which deletes a abstract vital response which will then be expressed physically, nervously, mentally, or emotionally in an organized being, or by energetic reaction to a non-organized being. The effect produced by the atmosphere of a cathedral, by its vaults, columns, stained glass windows, and figure symbols of religious principles is known. Thus, one could conceal that it is symbolic, is extended to the choice of the stones, the metals, the colors, the materials placed in the foundation, the favorable place lights. If, in short, everything corresponds symbolically to the significance of the place, one could, I say, understand the magical effects of this symbolically, which is a nearly absolute as possible. In literature, only the parable represents the esoteric symbolically. It could be explained in terms of the effect of the parabolic mirror. All the parallel incident rays are reflected on a single central point, just as they are, moreover, when focused by a biconvex lens. But hieroglyphic writing in the ultimate esoteric symbolic writing in the figuration of the signs as well as their color and placement. Thus, I mentioned nearly here. We're going to talk about something here with the symbolic picture here. Nun, the sky, swallows the sun each evening and brings it forth into the world again at dawn. The pattern on her dress evokes celestial waves and particles of solar radiation emanated for the face of Utter, which the cow's ears that rises at the horizon. So this is what I'm going to show you here. Get back in here. I'll make sure I get in the right place. There's the symbol there. Hieroglyphics of the sky, none. Let's continue on with the reading. Now this section is called Symbol and Synthesis. The word symbol, derived and distorted from its usual Greek meaning, signifies a sign of recognition or password, has become synonymous with the representation of a concept by conventional sign. The ensemblage of the parts of a broken potsherd, which could also be represented by a torn note or a visiting card, meant, probably in a popular sense, the symbol or hieroglyphic signs of recognition. Nowadays, any letter or image that replaces the development of ideas called a symbol, such as a chemical symbol for simply or composite bodies, or the initials, I should say, of the words of a phrase to designate a group, or a speaking or representation figure for a trademark, but a single conventional letter in a mathematic operation such as the coefficient of pi for the circle, H for Planck's constant, and M for mass, and C for the speed of light, etc., is also called a symbol, as each letter requires a long development to explain its meaning, thus summarize. Whether it is a natural or combined image or a conventional sign, the property of the symbol is to be a synthesis. When in chemistry one wished to represent a combination, one was led to specifically assemblage of the parts in a static 2 or 3-dimensional form, and one had recourse to an image either in plane or in volume. These images are symbols, that is synthesis, and not the true representation of the combination. They serve only as support, that is intuitive place in the scheme of a central quantitative function, which probably cannot be specified in time and space. It is a property of thought to need a support and hypothesis of a specific nature. This can be called intuitional base, forming a scaffolding for the expansion of knowledge through series of groups, implied ideas, atmosphere, analogies, in short, all the radiation stemming from this symbol synthesis. Evolved thought, which is only an expansion of consciousness, then rids itself of the support. It could be said that the abstract spirit needs a concrete support, which by its nature must be the synthesis that is located in time and in space, or the form to be given to the spirit, so that it may have available the body necessary for experience. Later, this support is cast off, leaving the new concept in its purity. Synthesis should not be considered solely as a product of thought. In the chemical concrete sense of the word, nature offers synthesis, but it is above all its psychological meaning that we should take this word. Here's what Kant had to say about it. By the word synthesis, in its most general significance, I understand the process of joining different representations to each other and of comprehending their diversity in one cognitive. To Kant's definition, I should add that every natural thing is synthesis for rational science, which must proceed by analysis in order to acquire knowledge of the component parts of the nature of the thing. Let me also add what Marcelin Berthelot understood or understands by chemical synthesis, that which can produce new combinations unknown to nature. These are three types of synthesis and three types of symbols. The vital synthesis, which is the natural symbol and its expression, that is tangible form, characteristic word or sound, and color, is the pure symbol. The action of synthesis, which represents the pseudo symbol, such as the word vocable, replacing the image and determination, the concept. The synthesis effect of thought or psychological synthesis, which represents the parallel symbol through the conventional symbol, summarizes a thought. I'll show you that too. Just trying to explain here to you. Let me get back in here so I can make it clear so people can see it. Now, what he says in figure 5, he says top row, the sacred scab preparing to lay its eggs is sheep dung ball in the form of a nul vas. The hieroglyph of the nul vas is used to write, among other things, in W, the primordial waters. So that's the little symbols here, okay? Then the scab's own ball, in which are brought about, is metamorphosis, time. Middle row, the sacred scab is the only insect that manufactures a perfect sphere, which it rolls with its back legs and buries it in the ground. And the last part here simply is lower row, the wing scab rises up from a sphere, rolling the symbol of the rising sun with its front legs. All these aspects of synthesis are the symbols of the set of functions, as well as its ensembles of parts that the synthesis implies. Thus, the symbol serves equally well for the objectification of thought as for a for a system of reference. But in its esoteric sense, it will act as a psychological synthesis, evoking the functions. Thus, the unobjectable, viable, qualitative relationship that is specific from synthesis. Today, the new scientific thought should clearly call upon the two forms of intelligence, since experiment and observation require a determinist stance in time and space, manifesting at the same time. The indeterminate aspect of the simultaneously imposed by the phenomenon. It can be said, for the objective intelligence, there is a past and a future, but never a present, and that for reality there is a eternal, invariable presence outside of time. And here's another symbol here he's explaining. And so the sun at the horizon between the two Aker, AKER lines called yesterday and tomorrow. The commentary on this image reads, to me belongs yesterday and I know tomorrow. What is this? Yesterday is Osiris, tomorrow is Re. One may opt for either of these considerations. Each can be relatively true, but what matters is not a relative truth, but what is real. And by this word, I mean that which is invariable. In this sense, the symbol does not have to be true, nor to be considered as such. It is not the truth, but it is the reality. It is objectively determined in time and space, but as simultaneously or synthesis is outside of time. The symbol as a synthesis is the eternal present moment, because the same conjunction of condition that it created, its development, will compel it continually to be what it is. This prescribes the notion of identity, which is objectively inconceivable. There is a reversal of positions for the two intelligence. For the objective intelligence, there is determinism, where for the unexpressed intuitive intelligence, innate knowledge, there is non-determinism. On the other hand, the non-determinism of the simultaneity of the objective intelligence becomes the determined reality or the unformulated intuitional intelligence. To explain the preceding, let us take the example of the coefficient of pi. Objectively, the circle is comprehensively only as the ensemble of the basis of triangles having their apexes at the center of the circle. Thus, one will attempt to calculate the coefficient of its ratio to its diameter by means of polygons and by estimate resulting from the inscribed and circumscribed polygons. It is evident that one will never get a finite number in this way, and pi must be a rational number. One accepts the absurd formula of a polygon, which is the infinite number of sides, which attests to the feeling that the circle can in no way be known through polygons. Intuitively, we are certain that the circle is a line that is curved along every part of its path. However small that part may be, for instance, let us make an object describe a circle. It is evident that only an indefinable, immaterial moment, that is, as an extension of the radius tracking this circle, will follow the curve, while the object in its length will always be only tangent. The letter pi, chosen arbitrarily, becomes a symbol. As a symbol, this pi synthesis, as objectively incomprehensible, inexplicable function, and every mathematical effort to calculate this value must at each moment call upon an abstract reality, intuitively known and objectively inexpressible. This is the case for all mathematical symbols, and ultimately for the symbol in general. The symbol pi is a synthesis, that is a number, the symbol C is the synthesis of the speed of light. In Egyptian hieroglyphics, the cubit, that is the forearm, is the symbol of the synthesis of measurement because of its measure of the universe, particularized in the human microcosm, but it is not a defined measurement. And I'll show you this symbol here. And this figure is figure 7. What it means simply is, I am this pure logos which emerges carrying the luminous, that is to cry the dead, alluring to the Hermopolitan myth in which the sun is born from the callus of a locust rising up from the waters. Everything takes birth through him, the child who shines in the lotus, whose rays give life to all beings. The symbol acts as a link between the rational intelligence and the intelligence today called Sarantian. These latter can only be expressed in mathematical form. We're dealing here with a new consciousness that is, epistemologically speaking, a new state of the power of thought. This seems to have been known to and evident among the ancient Egyptians since they constructed all their expressions on the knowledge of this dualism of intelligence, which traditionally labels exotericism and esotericism. The ordinary consideration of Egyptian symbol reduces it to a primary arbitrary, utilitarian, and singular meaning, whereas in reality it is a synthesis which requires great erudition, or its analysis and special culture for the esoteric knowledge that it implies, which does not exclude the necessary of being simple or knowing how to simply look at the symbol. Next section is called Innate Knowledge Summary. Time and activity that is consequent reactions has produced a phenomenon exhausting all the energies involved. This phenomenon counts as one. That is, it constitutes a individuality. Egyptian calculations proceed in this way by fractions, as do our mathematics as well. In relation to a new function, the symbol counts as one. Thus, the symbol is the characteristic principle of Pythagorean number. There is the enumerating number and the numerical number of ordinary arithmetic and non-numerical number of the science of numbers. The new unity, that is, the entity derived from the vital connection of the component numbers and not from a quantitative addition. There is, for example, a trunk and its branches constituting a tree. This tree, as such, has now new qualities. It is a whole, a new individual. In another category, one could say that a bouquet is a whole which represents what each of the flowers composing it cannot be separated. We count 5 fingers, and this number 5 is no longer an addition of 5 units, but a hand with new qualities and a particular power which none of these single fingers can have. Thus, in the Pythagorean sense, each number is a unity in itself, an entity, an individuality, and as such is non-enumerable. This principle of grouping has become an important factor in new scientific thought. One no longer speaks of the Pythagorean number, but its principle is applied. All the events in time, non-determinable, but the isolated individual showed themselves in the totality of the groupings of these individuals to be independent with respect to one another. The greater the number, the more precise becomes the calculations of probability. The inability of exoteric, that is objective intelligence, to study the secret of life of the individual is any depth drives the microphysicists as well as the sociologists to address the principle of collectivity in order to derive statistical conclusions. This lure is a last resource, pending the time when the reality of the other intelligence that which might be called innate knowledge is recognized. The statistician conclusion useful for the collective is an error in terms of the individual. The group is a whole, a new being. Its energy is new. Its tendencies are different from those of the units that constitute it. Therefore, after research on the atom, it will be necessary to return to the study of the complex, that is a group, in order to know the simple. Simply, that is sense with the rational scientific method, the simple is impenetrable. In our symbolic approach, it is understood that the individual himself composed of a group, but through this group, it has become individuality. That is a unity independent from other similar unities. Thus, each part of what composes it can no longer be regarded as individuality and can no longer even be objectified. Thus, one may only speak of quantitative or energetic principles. The vital experience of the individuality becomes its own and can only affect the principles of the constitution. It is the modification introduced into the energetic whole constituting it, the individuality, that specifies the latter. The vital experience modifies its specifications in a constant manner, constituting its acquired experience, which then alone will influence the genes, and their mutations will create what I call the cerebral unconscious consciousness or innate knowledge. Thanks to the innate knowledge, we are able to understand. It is the intellect or living soul that sensory observations through evocation will cause to create. The next section is called the principle of the present moment. This is called present moment. Time is measured by movement. So if there's no movement, it's timeless. That would be what Phil Langdon would say. In other words, time itself is movement, and timelessness is non-movement. Okay. At each instance, a movement can only be completed or about to start. It cannot be otherwise, as it cannot be past or future, or at the same time. The present moment cannot therefore be situated. It is outside of time because it is outside of measurable movement. It presents the conditions of an absolute. It is from this absolute that we constantly draw our forces in dying. The cell reproduces itself. This passes from 1 to 2 in its present moment, which cannot be located in time, although the phrases of Canisius succeeds one another to create the genesis of the new cell. The present moment is that which compels the nucleus to divide. Each instant of life is negation and affirmation at the same time. That is absence of time. We can, by extension, speak of duration as being the present hour or epoch, for example. But each moment of this hour or epoch is a collision between the impulsions of the past and the obstacles of the future. It is only by locating ourselves outside of time that we can speak of a presence. You see, for example, a given person is present. He's not elsewhere. He is here in a specific space. That is a movement arrested in time. Thus, presence belongs to the past and not to the future. This is illustrated, for example, by the royal presence that is symbolized in the British Parliament by the mace, M-A-C-E. This is a stop in time, like a milestone on the road, which does not prevent time from passing beside it or the road from unwinding. Presence is a symbol. The present moment is eternal. And I'll show you a symbol of this at the top. So figure 8 from right to left, the singer is of a moon, A-M-U-N. Her Oberlin, O-U-B-E-N, and the baboon of Thralt in front of the Ododia I. I said that wrong, so it's O-U-D-J-A-I, under which is inscribed Adoration to Re, New Year of Re. In the bark of the ray in the sky between the two lines, that's yesterday and tomorrow. So you see the lines at the bottom here between yesterday and tomorrow. Above a antelope head, Horus, the chow, Horus Harpenrate, wearing the braid of the crown prime, and with his finger at his lips, is seated on the sign of the horizon inside the solar disk, which is in turn encircled by the serpent who bites his own tail, symbol of eternity, and itself embraced by two arms descending from heaven. So they would speak simply as the time is when you're in the presence, in the present moment, which is something that's been probably illuminated recently in the last probably 10 years or less. Been spoken about certain people, you need to be in the presence. You need to be at that point. You're not somewhere else. You're right there at that point in the presence of something, either like a butterfly in front of you and you're right there with it, so to speak. Next chapter is this continuous object in the continuous presence. In the vital phenomenon, Genesis is the dynamic aspect. A given moment of the functional relationship that constitutes Genesis is the vital moment. One can know the vital moment only when it is stopped by death. This is its static moment, which signifies its negation. Thus, one cannot know this vital moment objectively. One can only know its effects, that is, its fixed effects, the stages of genesis. The objective awareness of dynamic, static simultaneously is impossible, since there is a contradiction, but it is possible using the intuitive, that is, the unexpressed intelligence of the vital dynamism to juxtapose or compare the objective symbol with the static, that is, located state of the vital moment, its current stage. This state of comparison, that is, of Julius' position of a objective state, unstable in time with its ever-present state of simultaneity, should not be confused with just Julia's position of two worlds or two presents. In the present, everything mingles, including all the instants of the genesis of everything. The present is unobjectifiable, this dimension which contains all volumes. From the point of view of space, it is necessary that compels things to exist under specific conditions. It is also, in the sense of time, the possibility immanent in each object at each instant. Thus, creation is constant from esotericism, but for exotericism, it is located in the beginning. So here, the word dynamic is used in the sense of an exhausted impulsion which generates a vital succession or genesis, and not in the kinematic sense of a displacement in space. The unexpressed awareness of simultaneously is synthesis and not synthesizing. It is the esoteric meaning, whereas esotericism is necessary analytical. The opinion of science, which I consider erroneous, is that knowledge will be achieved through the synthesis of analytical located elements, but I think that, just as one can glimpse in mathematics, with the expansion of consciousness, our thought is heading towards direct synthetic vision. In this sense, the symbol is thus the object, exterior to us, which awakens innate knowledge through the senses. This creates our intuitional knowledge of the simultaneous, a continuity in which a discontinuality is located. For example, the image of a bird in flight is the symbol of the flight of a winged animal. This image is a static moment that is arrested in time of this function of flying, its fixation. This symbol arouses in us not only what we have registered in our memory concerning the flight of birds, but also our innate knowledge of flight, our sensation of flight, and we embody this knowledge in the image symbol, which thus becomes a synthesis of our knowledge of the flight of the bird. What matters is not the image, but the symbol synthesis of the function of the vital moment. The image is death, the symbol is life. In relation to life, death is nothing but a fixation in time, hence a false eternity. True eternity must be sought in the innate, unexpressed consciousness which becomes the intuitive knowledge of simultaneously. Now, one would have to be omniscient to be able to discern all the possibilities contained in a symbol, which would imply the innate knowledge of the entire universe. Consequently, in order to make practical use of the symbol, a symbol consisting in a choice of the possibilities that should be looked for in a world appear inevitably. But to attempt to set up a rational system, which is possible if need be, would be to fall back into an exoteric interpretation, which would deprive the symbol of the possibility of speaking esoterically. The choice should be made by the reader, solely in the light of and to the extent of his own innate knowledge. One need only note the philosophical principle to which the symbol conforms in order to learn them, to seek in oneself the summary meaning of their synthesis. One must also know that, for example, in ancient Egypt, the choice of an animal as a symbol was guided by a profound knowledge of the life of that animal, of its vital characteristics, its habits, its assimilations, the length of its gestation, its mating customs, that is the season and even the time of day, etc. In the doctrine of microcosm, each animal is a stage in the universal gestation, the goal of which for us is man, Homo sapiens. So I'm going to show you this real quick. Another symbol of his book. Figure 9. I am this phoenix which is Heliopolis. What is this? It is eternity and perpetuity. This is from Papyrus of an ANI, chapter 17. At the end of the inundation, recalling the primordial waters, known, dryness appears, that is Oubennn, in the form of the first hicklock, and the ash-colored heron, the ben bird, glides majestically down and rests on the ben stone at Heliopolis. The recurrence of this phenomenon gave birth to the legend of the phoenix reborn from its own ashes, thus symbolizing perpetuity. This is from Pyramid, Texas, from 1652. The Egyptian symbolic does not hesitate to choose among all the varieties of a type the characteristic elements that one wishes to insinuate, thus creating a composite image which our scholars attempt tirelessly and in vain to place in a schematic classification. Next section is called Relationship is the Symbol of Being. Being as existence manifests only through relationship. That is the interchange between two complete complements of being. We call the complements the two specific qualities of a thing, one of which denies the other. For instance, brightness and shadow make light. Without shadow, no object would be visible. You see, this is part of duality. This is what people don't seem to see. They don't understand. We have a world of day and in daytime, and we have dark in the nighttime. You see, we have shadows. There would not be any shadows if it was not light. Okay, it would just be darkness, period. But when light is added to darkness, there is shadow. You see, without shadow, no object would be visible. So that if brightness were without shadow, we should no more know light than does a blind man. This proposition can also be reversed. That is, the blind man is he who lives in a brightness without shadow, which is often true. Another wide known example of that of complementary colors such as red and green and yellow and purple, orange and blue, superimposed by means of subtraction. These complementary annuals all colors and theoretically make black. Added together, they theoretically give white light. Complements do not exist separately any more than does the North Pole without the South Pole. See, there's got to be extremes here. There's got to be one that's, it's from the north and the south. The positive, negative, and the polarity. You see, they are the abstract components of being. They are essentially the active and passive male and female principles. You see, mechanical passive state, which is merely a lesson activity, should not be confused with the vital passive principle. In the vital state, the complements are the poles of a single axis and not a relative state, and would be these relationship of two objects moving at different speeds, the passive principle in an inverse activity, or what we call the Chinese yin and yang. I'll show you the symbol here at the very top. In this figure, I think this is figure 10. Yes, it is. Have you observed this? Figure 10 at the center is the double head of Seth of the south and Horus of the north. It emerges from a single body standing on the falcon head line that wears the white crown of the south. On his hindquarters is a human head. Also wearing the white crown. To the right and to the left are stakes, each surmounted by a head crowned with the white crown. The stakes lean severely as they're repelled by the central image and pulled in the opposite direction by the two groups of snake-headed persons. wearing the crowns of the north and of the south that symbolize the blind forces, positive and negative, of the terrestrial magnetism. Two objects moving at different speeds, the passive principle is inverse activity. Okay, I've just said that. Sorry. There is an interchange of activities and exchange of energy, hence the possibility of addition and subtraction, or mutual annihilation or exaltation. This relationship is thus the symbol of being, the thing. The symbol links, complements, demonstrates being, implies the positive and negative activities. It is the transient phenomenon aspect between the causal abstraction and its negation. Thus, the symbol must always be considered as a relationship between two abstract and complementary elements. For example, the hare is not a symbol for the hunter because he considers the hare in relation to other game, foxes, partridges, and quails. In this connection, let us note that the spirit or formless substance is passive. This is the cosmic feminine principle. It is through the effects of odor, which is the acting verb, that this word from femininality falls into nature. The hare can only be a symbol in relationship to itself, that is, as the resultant of the vital data, which is specifically hare, H-A-R-E. Consequently, the same food will produce a hare, in this case, a rabbit, in the case of the rabbit. To be a hare, H-A-R, means above all to be a specific ferment that transforms all energy it receives into hair. For instance, by the air breathed and the solid and liquid food. For this reason, the physical and psychic characteristics as well as the activities of this hare will manifest in the symbol. The hare symbol as a relationship between the principles of the specific seed is a typical phrase located logically in the cosmic sense. Within the development of the ultimate being towards which nature tends, its image can thus express the entire complex of this phase, and in usage in this figuration can incinerate the principle of particular note. The next section is called the crossing or principle of evocation, EVOCATIN. Every cause must be considered as an activity which is relatively positive or negative. The phenomenon consequence of the cause is always catalytic, because without resistance, the reabsorption of the causal activity would only be an annulment, and because resistance necessarily causes a reaction. The cathodical effect is the basic illustration of the reactive effect, as it's shown by the effect of reflexes in a Crook cathode tube, cathode tube, CATHODE. Thus, the light of the moon can be considered a cathodical effect, that is, an effect embodying the rays of the sun. A similar specific effect is produced on each planet. The intensity of the solar flux and the nature of the cathode, as well as the angle of reflection, modify the resulting radiation. Embodiment character of the cathode signifies the specification of the neutral incident radiation. Every cause, or more correctly, every activity, is a cause only because of the opposite and reactive resistance. This reaction is a phenomenon. Neither the emissions of the anode nor the obstacles of the cathode appear in the empty tube. The Roentgen ray that results from them is phenomenon, and we now know that it is a question of truly new activity as reactivity of the atoms of the cathode. Quote, the positive current of the inductive current, that is static electricity, is introduced by means of a anode, ANODE, into a tube that has been made a vacuum as much as possible. Opposite this anode is the cathode, which catches the negative current and contains a sort of a mirror, as metallic fold, placed at an angle of 45 degrees so as to reflect the positive current caught towards one side of the tube. Once outside the tube, this flux in the case of X-rays is the cathodical effect. This principle reactivity is applied in esoteric symbology. It is prescribed by the fact that intellectually unsituated definition is impossible. Thus, this definition must be evoked by reaction, but one cannot describe it without locating it in time and space, hence fixing it. The symbol, as Cynthia's evokes through its static and concrete nature, the functional and qualitative whole from which it rises, that is, its vital, evokes its non-locatable definition. This mode of thought is the key to pharaonic thinking. It is also, moreover, similar to that of the Chinese. Another figure I'll show here. Figure 11, they are thus in the Dwad, that is the never world, as forms and bursts of Prepri, which he carries his oval, OVAL, that is NW1, towards this place in order to then came forth at the eastern horizon of the sky. These Naturer are thus the left eye coming out of the interlaced double right eye coming out of the SDFY1. These coming out into the double eye, coming out of the, okay, the symbol of the net neater. And what? That is the 10th hour at the left. The scab carries not a ball, but a characteristic cocoon containing the pupa of a butterfly or moth. At the right eye or solar glove rises out of the symbol of the divine. At the center, the crossing of the surface evokes conjunction. At the bottom, opposition. At bottom and opposition at the top, the principal phases of the left lunar eye. Okay. And I'm going to stop here. We'll stop here at this point. 47 minutes, so we'll stop here at this point. So this is part 2, the symbol and symbolically, and the Symbolic Rene Schwaller book, part 2. And we'll probably start the chapter, part 3, probably tomorrow. It's right around 9 o'clock, so we'll stop it tonight. Okay, thank you for being here. I hope that you understand some of the stuff that he's trying to explain. It is enormously complicated in some ways, unless you are a physics major or a mathematics major. But I appreciate you being here, and hopefully you will see what he's trying to explain to you. Thank you again for your attention, and wish you good night. Take care.